Much to discuss. Dean Legge, Ryan Curley. Ryan looks like he's deep in thought. Ryan, the one thing that I've noticed here of late, this Georgia Michigan line is starting to tick up towards the dogs even more and more. And this is one thing I wanted to read off again from our friends at Caesars. They talked about how they felt like this game should have been closer to 9. Here's what we've talked about this earlier, but I want to talk about it in perspective now. Craig Mucklow, Vice President of Trading at Caesars, saying, I personally would have had Georgia as a 9-point favorite, but Michigan's been very impressive all season. I think Michigan is a big time public underdog. I'm getting the feeling that we're going to need Georgia in this game. Talking about the casinos, I think we're at the right number, but I'd be amazed if we move lower than 7.5. Well, it's starting to get up towards 8.5. You can find that at places. I don't know. The big thing that I think people are forgetting here as it relates to the betting market, you can bet on games in Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. You cannot do that in Georgia. So that could be one reason why this game is getting a fair amount of action. I think one reason is, you're talking about the college football playoff game with two of the largest brands in college football. But your sort of thoughts on this starting to get away from a touchdown line for the dogs, more towards 8.5 or 8.
Yeah, I mean, I think Georgia's going to win. I think it could end up being a slugfest. I've still yet to dive really deep into the Michigan tape. I've watched a little bit. The thing I've watched the most is I've been watching a lot of Aiden Hutchinson tape, so it's been more specific on him. I just kind of wanted to see
He's
who was a
good.
player, and he's very good. I think, obviously, I think he'd probably deserve the spot in New York. Um, he was the runner-up, so in the voters' eyes, he was the second best player in the country.
I did not
But
vote him in my top three, but
he
I mean,
didn't. He was four.
we only get three. He could
Oh,
have
you
been
get three.
14th. You only get three. So
But
I think it was such a runaway anyway.
it was. Bryce Young deserved it. But Georgia's going to have to find a way to stop him. I think that
Hmm.
I just have a hard time seeing Michigan's offense because I have watched some Michigan, and I have a hard time seeing their offense be successful against Georgia's defense. I don't think they're a team that's going to drop back and throw it 40 or 45 times the way that Bryce Young did. And that's the really the only player and the only team that tried to do that against Georgia. Maybe Michigan takes that script and does that, but their bread and butter is pounding. It's the interior. They've got Hassan Haskins, who has 20 rushing touchdowns this year. Um, they they like to run the ball. Their quarterback is not elite. McNamara is not elite. He's good. I don't think he's great, but I think he's good enough to win games. Obviously, this is the best year Michigan's had in a long time, and I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I said this before. I had a hard time seeing Alabama put up 20 against Georgia, but they put up 24 in the first half, and Georgia's defense completely collapsed. I have a hard time seeing that happen again. And this offense is completely different from Alabama's. And I think that this is the type of offense that Georgia's catered to stop. We compared them a little bit to the way Arkansas plays, or maybe a little bit to the way Kentucky plays. And those teams had a really hard time scoring on Georgia. Kentucky put up 2 touchdowns, but you could tell the entire game that Georgia had that one in the bag, that there wasn't that much of a fight. And I just think this matchup really favors Georgia. It's going to be, I think the real question more so is Georgia going to be able to put up points against Michigan? But I think that's really more the question.
When you look at kind of clusters of the way teams are, Michigan is in the same universe as Tennessee, Auburn, Missouri. They're right there with Missouri, Kentucky, and Arkansas. Those five teams are all in the same universe in terms of passing the ball. It's not what Michigan really wants to do. In terms of running it, that is, as you said, much more their style. They are the 10th in the country in rushing the football. That is just looking very quickly, that is the number one team Georgia will face. They are three better than the Arkansas Razorbacks in terms of ranking. They are about seven better than Arkansas in terms of production in yardage, 224 to 217. So this is a Michigan team that they're going to try to run the ball. They are. I think the good news for Michigan is they've been very successful running the ball. The bad news is it's been challenging to be a run team against Georgia.
I don't. I
Or
think challenging is putting it
well,
nicely. No one has really successfully ran on Georgia, not to the point where it gets them points.
yeah. So
I mean, would you
Arkansas,
say Auburn was maybe the best, just from remembering the games?
I don't know how I would describe Auburn other than in shambles currently. Arkansas was 217 yards a game. Tennessee was at 212, and Tennessee got some traction. The Gators were at 209, Kentucky at 206. So Georgia's played several teams somewhat like Michigan. I do think Michigan does a better job with it. Um, the thing about the Michigan games so far that I've watched is that they are not explosive in a way that you would associate with Alabama's explosion. But if you blow coverages the way Georgia did against Alabama, anybody's going to look explosive. Now, all of those plays were not blown coverages. Just the first one, which really got Bama jump started. And honestly, if people will go back and take a look at the tape, it's not that Georgia shut Alabama down in the run game. Alabama ran enough, somewhat like the 2020 Florida game, that they were effective on the ground. It was enough, and enough is good enough when you need it to be. But that's when you have a strong passing game. There are problems here for Michigan, I think, coming into this game, Ryan. There are, just like there are for Georgia. But I mean, Alabama ran for 115. There were no sacks in that game, and a lot of those were Bryce Young. Frankly, can McNamara get loose like that and make damaging plays? The other question before you answer that is, will Michigan try to play these bunch formations against Georgia, who seems to be pretty good at dealing with bunch at the end of the day? I don't know.
McNamara is not the runner that Bryce Young is, and Bryce Young. Because look, Bryce Young's really the only quarterback that found success against Georgia, and that's why we go back
Oh,
to it.
that's true. Yeah.
I mean, so that's why we keep going
Well,
back
the
to it and
Kentucky the
comparing it.
Kentucky quarterback was not bad,
Levis was all right,
and
but
I
no
think
one
Hooker.
really. I mean, finding success is finding the end zone and making it a competitive game. And Clemson was a competitive game, but that was not because of Clemson's
Not
offense.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but with McNamara, that's just he's not dropping back thinking he's not the kind of quarterback that he's just not a game changer the way Bryce Young is.
Oh no,
Will
I wouldn't say that.
will
Will
he
he
have
be?
will he have a game changing game against Georgia? He very well could. I'm not saying that's impossible, but Bryce Young is savvy. He knows how to scramble. He knows how to make someone miss 10 yards down the field. And we saw that against Georgia. He had a few successful runs against Georgia. Um, and we are talking about the best quarterback in college football was the only quarterback this year that tore apart Georgia's defense. I think that there's not really a way to put it lightly. He tore them apart. Him and the rest of the guys. Georgia's defense didn't show up to play. I have a hard time seeing that happen twice, especially against the way Michigan, has a more bunch set, like you said, and they want to pound it up the middle. They want to get the ball outside to their backs. They're not dropping back and throwing. I mean, McNamara has a little bit over half the passing yards that Bryce Young did this year.
Yeah,
I mean, we saw
it's
an
a
elite
different
passing
style.
attack. How you beat Georgia's defense? An elite passing attack. I don't think an elite running. I mean, yeah, because I would say Michigan had an elite running attack this year. I mean, 20 touchdowns from your starting running back is no joke.
That's a
Not a
lot.
lot of players have done that.
Yeah.
And some of those are goal line. But Georgia's. I mean, Hassan Haskins, the player that we're talking about, is not one of the faster backs in the country. If you've watched him play, and which I have a little bit, he's not. He's not going to blow away from you and take off. There's definitely guys on Georgia's defense that are just as fast as him, if not faster. You could even argue Nakobe Dean might be able to catch him. And so I think that Michigan is going to find that the Big Ten wasn't as physical and dominant defensively as they were in the past. I don't think Ohio State's defense was as good this year as it has been the
Well,
last few
they
years.
ran right at them, man. I
They
mean,
they
they
did,
had
and
no answer.
I just think if there's a team you're not going to run against, it's going to be the Georgia Bulldogs. That's their style. And look, and big man in the middle, Jordan Davis. he is a run stopping defender. He's not a pass rusher.
He's such a troublemaker when you want to run the ball because he occupies a couple of gaps. I mean, he doesn't. And nobody really occupies two gaps, but he's like a gap and a half guy, and it's trouble because his arms are long, and moving him usually, I mean, if not always, uses two people. Well, I mean, there's your double team, and if you are double teaming Jordan the entire time, then the arithmetic means that a linebacker should be free. So that's if you need the linebacker, and it is difficult to grind these games out against Georgia. If you're going to try to do that, Alabama scored. Yeah, I don't mean this in a derogatory way. Alabama scored quick, easy points. I mean, they also drove the field sometimes, but 14 of their points, well, 21, were on quick strike plays. A pick six, a 60-something yard play. I've got it
And a
all
50,
right
and a
here.
50 something. There were the
Yeah, I
two
mean,
passes to Jamison Williams and the pick six.
I was going to talk about this in a future video, but now that we're just talking about it, um, Alabama, comparatively speaking, I've only gone through about half the season so far, so you know that's my problem. But Alabama scored on a 67-yard play, a 55-yard play, a 40-yard play, and a pick six. I mean, there you go. That's 28 points, and they get credit for that. But the shocking thing here, Ryan, is that no other team, and I've not gone back to I've not gone before the Auburn game. No other team has half the amount of explosive plays that Alabama did, and it was not necessarily all pass. There were some runs. I mean, they had two 15-yard runs. They were from the quarterback, but I guess what I'm trying to say is Michigan's going to need anyone that plays Georgia is going to need some cheap points, some easy points. Clemson never got that. And that was a game they, in theory, could have won, but they just couldn't get those points. They couldn't get anything cheap and easy. The Gators, Auburn. I'm just trying to think of any sort of cheap score that happened this season, and I'll be damned, man, it just didn't happen
Yeah,
until the
the
Alabama
only
game.
one that pops in my head was the pick six against UAB. I mean, that was the
Okay,
only. I mean, but that was Carson Beck throwing that ball. Look, you're
and
needing a dynamic
The
offense.
Charleston
Yeah,
Southern big play as well.
yeah. You need a dynamic offense to beat Georgia's defense. An offense that can do both, and a quarterback that's going to be able to get outside the pocket. I have a very, very, very hard time seeing Georgia's defense struggle again the way it did last
Against
Saturday
against Alabama
against
or against Michigan?
against any team. Against any
Really?
team, I have a
You're
hard
just
time
kind
seeing
of
them
going there.
struggle. Yes,
Half of okay,
let me
Georgia.
go. Let me go there. You could go, but let me go there.
I mean, that's I want to fully keep going with these numbers. Again, this
I
is
have
only
some.
only the last 7 games of the season that I've got here, but there were only Georgia's only given up 6 plays for 40 yards or more, and 3 of them came against Alabama. One was against Georgia Tech in the fourth quarter, and then 2 plays against Tennessee, one of which was in the fourth quarter as well. So, uh, you know, it shows that Alabama has the capability to do that. I mean, you're talking about 160 yards, boom, on 3 plays. But hey, you've got to guard against that too. The question is, and Greg McElroy did not think so. Can Michigan pop those big plays against Georgia? I don't know.
Look, McNamara has ran for 27 yards this year. That's his net rushing yards, I think, after sacks, off of 30 attempts. I mean, Bryce Young ran for more than that in his game against Georgia. McNamara is not a guy who's going to get outside the pocket and make people miss downfield. And he's not a guy who's going to get outside the pocket and make some crazy throw on the run with a defender in your face. I just don't
Yeah.
think that's what he is. I
No.
think he's, you know, I don't want to call him a game manager, but that's a little bit what his role is with Michigan. They have a system where they want to pound the ball, and he's back there to throw when they need it. They can make some throws downfield. They had a couple downfield throws against Ohio State um, in a big rivalry game. But Georgia, I think you need a dynamic quarterback that can make game-changing plays to really break Georgia's defense down. And going back to my point earlier, I think that if Georgia gets the opportunity to play Alabama the second time, I don't think the defense will struggle the way it did the first time around. I don't think
Well,
they'll
we'll
play that.
just see.
They
We'll
couldn't have
just
played
see.
any worse, man.
No, I know, but then Alabama could just play that well again, and you can still lose. I mean, that it is hard to imagine that they would play that poorly twice, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not how you play, but who you play. I mean, usually it is how you play, frankly, particularly if you're Georgia and Alabama. But if Alabama plays as well as they did in Atlanta, it's going to be tough for Georgia to win that particular game. Um, and they schemed. A lot of that was the coaching staff getting out coached. I mean, they Jordan Davis was on the field a lot more often than he is traditionally used to. It was also that Alabama did a great job on third down. Is Michigan going to be that good on third down? I don't know. I'm not asking it like as a hater. Let me just look at their third down percentage. That's an important thing. That's one thing that JT Daniels really excelled at. And Alabama's number 2 in the country in that. Michigan's not bad. They're at 45%. That's top 23. I mean, that's better than Georgia. Not by a lot, but it's better than Georgia. And when you're at 54%, like Alabama, Kentucky was at 51%, and they converted a bunch of third downs against Georgia. I don't know if you remember that or not, particularly in that first quarter. But Ohio State is 53%. Those teams that have capable quarterbacks, Tennessee, top 11, uh, those those teams are hard to deal with. And Alabama is at 32% permitting on third down. That's really good. That's better than Georgia, who's at 33%. 19th in the country. So I don't know. I mean, some of that speaks to, we're Michigan, we're going to run the ball and kind of wind up in third and threes and third and twos. Um, Conversion of third downs does not necessarily mean you are a great team, but it does kind of stick out that who's right there? Oh, Alabama and Ohio State are number 2 and 3, and Kentucky's 5, who is also a pretty good team, and Utah's 8. I mean, you're starting to rack up a lot of teams that have won a lot of games. I mean, BYU top 10, Utah top 10, Wake top 10, Kentucky, Oregon, Ohio State, Alabama, Coastal. All those teams except Kentucky have 10 wins this season. I mean, so third down, it's lame to call it this because I think it's ridiculous, but it is the time, it is money down. It is when you're going to get paid or not paid in the NFL. But anyway, I've talked too much about it. I don't know. I mean, these guys they're in serious prove it mode, man. You don't ever want to go into a break having lost a game, particularly having lost a game the way that Georgia did. There's going to be plenty of people like me and you, like Paul's guests for sure. Yeah, I saw the smile on your face there. But you don't want to go into the holiday season with a loss. The thing is now though they've got a chance to correct these things. Gene Chizik thinks they will, and a lot of people that I talk to, sort of inside baseball folks, they think so too, but they're also saying, hey, they can lose to Michigan if they play the way they did against Alabama. In fact, if they do play against Michigan the way they did against Bama, they'll lose. And I think they're right. They have to play well. They cannot sort of play. They got to do it.
Oh, they have to come out there firing. Both teams, if you want to win this game. This is, I mean, when's the last time Georgia have they ever played?
Michigan,
Long
not
time ago, right?
yeah. I mean, when our parents were not even my mother was born. My
These are
parents were
two
born, but yours
big
not.
these are two big programs in a game that neither of them play in very often in the Orange
Yeah,
Bowl, with a chance to go to the national championship.
right.
It's a huge, huge moment. Even though Georgia and Michigan couldn't be in any more of an opposite situation right now. Michigan's the hottest team in the country, and Georgia just took what was somewhat of a shocking loss in the way that they lost
Hmm.
in a game that most people thought they were going to win. They're completely different situations. How are they going to respond? Is Georgia going to wipe that off and keep pushing forward? And is Michigan going to stay hot? Um, have we talked about the weather? It's going to be warm down there, and that's not what Michigan's used to this time of year.
Yeah, so I have talked about that a little bit, and we can't know. we're still more than 15 days away. But Miami weather at night it might not be that bad, man. But like right now it's 78 degrees and we're recording this almost at night. It's going to be in the 80s this entire week. In Ann Arbor, and they can practice indoors up there. Um, it's 44 as the high. I mean, it's almost double as high. It's going to be 32 on Sunday. Um, I think that matters a little. I'm not sure it matters a lot. I mean, the last time Michigan was down there at the Orange Bowl, it was Jim Harbaugh and company, and they lost narrowly to Florida State with Devin Cook, who was playing on that team, James' brother. But the most memorable Orange Bowl I think for Michigan ever was the Tom Brady Alabama game where they won in overtime. I mean, that was a huge game, and this was before Tom Brady was Tom Brady. Let me tell you, and that was a monumental win for for Michigan. I mean, do people call them the Wolverines? I guess they do. Um,
Go blue.
yeah, I mean, it's not. You can't say "Go Blue." That's like saying
That's
for
like saying go dogs
or
or
yeah
sick 'em.
or Sparty. I mean, I don't know. I think the other thing too. Well, the biggest moment here is coming up when they start practices, and you cannot take any of these practices lightly in any way. You can't take them too seriously, I wouldn't say, but you cannot take them lightly. They are important practices, and I know I've talked about this a lot, and people are eagerly waiting to roll their eyes. But any player, any coach, any person in that facility, that 400 people that are Georgia football, they can get a practice going. It can be Robert Beal, it can be Xavier Sori, it can be anybody. They can also bring it down, and it's all about managing where are we going here, and if you're like Jake Camarda or more specifically Jack Podnesley, what happens when you miss a pressure kick in practice? Are you ready to kick another one? Or, you can feel, having played a sport that's somewhat about rhythm, what happens when you're out of rhythm and you're the quarterback? How do you get yourself back into rhythm? All these things for Georgia's players, these are older players. Stetson, JT, even Jack Podnesley is an older player. But how do you maintain rhythm when you're in a arrhythmic, if that's a word, time of the year? And all these things matter in practice. And
It
it's
does,
an
and
it's an
that's why
important time to practice.
yeah, I don't know that obviously it's unfortunate that the finals kind of go on right after the SEC championship. I think in an ideal world and in Kirby's world, they would be grinding the day after,
Sure.
and that could knock them off the rhythm a little bit. But they're going to have enough practices
Oh, for
beforehand. I
sure.
imagine they're going to start practicing for real in a few days, couple
Yes.
days. So I mean, they've been working out. I know they have set workouts and everything like that, and the coaches have been on the recruiting trail. So it's just been kind of a break. Who's going to come back from this break wanting to kill? I think is they have an opportunity. It's not
I
over. They have
know.
an opportunity in front of
I
them.
know.
They need to take it seriously. I hope if you're
Oh, I'm
watching, I
sure.
really hope if one of you are watching, I know people like Nolan Smith watch. He even said that
Oh,
on one of those
is
press
that
conferences.
right? I
Did you
need some
see? Do you
glasses like Nolan. That's what I
do
need.
you remember after Florida? He just starts saying he just randomly starts going. I read everything you guys write and watch, and I watch it
Oh,
all.
I feel so bad for
And
him. There's a
and
lot of bad. There's a lot of
yeah,
bad out there. But
yeah. Well,
Does Nolan have a shirt like this though? Nolan, we can make it work for Christmas.
a dad shirt or a middle
A
schooler, whichever
dad
you
shirt.
choose.
Hey, everybody likes French fries, man. Everybody likes French fries. If you don't like French fries,
I love French fries.
no, I'm just saying, like as a person, as a human being, you really probably need to reassess your life goals, your values, your values. No, I there's there Nolan is about as important as anybody there. He's the most vocal guy defensively. He is uh, he is really critical. He can't get out of rhythm. Like that's not possible for him because of the position he plays. So he can be though a guy that can jumpstart practice. I know I talk about this too much, But
It could take one sack, one
I'm
interception
telling
in
you right
practice. It could be
now, it
something like
makes a
that.
huge difference because it goes through the next day. Like you feel it when you're out to eat at dinner, or I know people. We've gone on a long time, but when in basketball, there were times when it was just you on campus and that was it. Well, that's what they're about to deal with right now, and that shit is really lonely, man. It is awful. And we did it for 3 weeks in January. It was cold, miserable. It was just not fun, and it's hard because it's just you and your teammates around there. Um, we were playing games, so it's not quite the same. But all you had were practice and games, and that was it. And so there was no, socializing with other people. Nobody's going out right now, so it is a challenging time in a way for Georgia and the players. But they, unlike us, we were in the middle of conference play. They're not. They're going for some. They're going for glory. They're going for history right now, and that SEC championship game can be a footnote, but they can't. It will not be one unless they get these solid, whatever it is. I don't know if it's 20 practices, but it's a fair amount of practice. Unless they get these practices in the right way, it will not be a footnote, and that's what they'll be remembered by.
They got to shake this off. They just got to shake it off. They
Maybe
can't
that.
be like
Maybe
the delusionals that think the world ended. What uh 9 days ago, whatever it was. They can't. And I know you guys hate it when we say that, but it's funny.
no. It's
Uh,
true though. It's true. You know
it,
what else
you
is? Go ahead.
the world did not end. The world did not end.
I
How
can.
are you gonna respond? How are you gonna
I can.
respond?
I can confirm that the world did not end. But what is going to end soon is this deal. Now I know I'm going 26 minutes
Ah,
into this thing. We should have started this a lot earlier. $2 for 2 months. We've had a record number of people sign up. Don't be a person that misses out. We'll see you over on dogpost.com. See you on the website.